Northern Ireland's Footballing Greats presents
Northern Ireland's all-time greatest goal scorers. Hello and welcome to the latest video from Northern Ireland's Footballing Greats. Today we will track the top Northern Ireland international goal scorers across various competitions and teams. We start off with the top scorers at senior international level. For many years, the tally of 13 could be seen as a curse. Billy Gillespie hit the tally in 1926, but didn't score again though his international career went on until 1930. Colin Clark hit the mark in 1992 just a few months before his career was ended by injury. That is to say nothing of the multiple players who reached the tally of 12 but got no further. David Healy was marked as a potential player to break the baker's dozen mark from his debut in 2000, and by the end of 2001, had scored 8 international goals. There then followed the infamous goal drought which blighted both player and team. His return to form in 2004 saw the 13-goal mark match then beaten during a tour of the Caribbean. By the end of 2008, he had taken his overall tally to 35. Although there was a long barren period at the end of his career, he scored his 36th and final Northern Ireland goal in 2012. Kyle Lafferty has also since beaten the 13-goal mark, reaching 20 by the end of his career. But perhaps the curse has returned, as Stephen Davis reached 13 before his career too was ended by injury. Northern Ireland have, of course, reached the World Cup finals on 3 occasions, in 1958, 1982, and 1986. 3 players have scored a single goal on football's biggest stage. Wilbur Cush scored the opening goal of the 1958 tournament and Norman Whiteside and Colin Clark notched a single goal apiece in 1986. At the 1982 finals in Spain, Billy Hamilton scored twice, both against Austria, and Gerry Armstrong scored 3 times, most notably in the famous 1-0 win over Spain. The overall top goal scorer for Northern Ireland at a World Cup is Peter McParland, who scored 5 goals in 5 games at Sweden 1958. These included a brace in a 2-2 draw with Germany and both goals in an extra-time win over Czechoslovakia as Northern Ireland reached the quarter-finals. Northern Ireland reached the European Championship finals for the first and so far only time in 2016. They scored 2 goals in France, those coming from Gareth McCauley and Niall McGinn in a 2-0 win over Ukraine. At this stage, we should also look at the players who set those goals up. Oliver Norwood provided the free kick for McCauley's header and Josh McGuinness and Stuart Dallas were heavily involved in the build-up to McGinn's goal. The British Home Nations Championships was the world's first international football competition and was played for a century from 1884 to 1984. One of the early stars of this tournament was Alfie Stanfield, who notched up an impressive 11 goals in 30 appearances from 1887 to 1897, a remarkable feat while playing for a team that regularly suffered heavy defeats. The second top goal scorer for Ireland, as it was at the time, was Joe Bambrick. He scored 12 times in 11 appearances, most notably a double hat-trick against Wales in 1930. The previously mentioned Billy Gillespie scored all 13 of his international goals in the Home Nation Series, including twice as Ireland won the title for the first time in 1914. The Irish FA first entered a team into the FIFA World Cup for the 1950 tournament, still competing as Ireland. Johnny Crossan scored a then Northern Ireland record 5 goals in the qualifying series for England 1966, but Northern Ireland fell painfully short of a place at the finals. Gerry Armstrong would also score 5 goals, including in the successful qualifying campaigns for Spain 82 and Mexico 86. Kyle Lafferty and Stephen Davis too reached the tally of 5, but never had a chance to play on world football's biggest stage. The record goal scorer for Northern Ireland in World Cup qualifiers is David Healy, who scored 9 times across qualifying campaigns from 2000 to 2012, famously including the winner against England in 2005. Northern Ireland first entered the then European Nations Cup in 1962, with Derek Dugan scoring their first goal against Poland. Ian Dowie scored a then record 7 European Championships qualifying goals for Northern Ireland, including 5 in the Euro '96 campaign. Kyle Lafferty scored a total of 10 qualifying goals, including 7 in the successful Euro 2016 qualifiers. The record scorer for Northern Ireland in European qualifying is David Healy, who scored 13 goals, which remarkably all came in the Euro 2008 qualifying campaign, setting a then-tournament record. Northern Ireland suffered a slow start in the UEFA Nations League after it commenced in 2018. Paddy McNair, Josh McGuinness, and Dan Ballard have all managed 3 goals. It was a hat-trick from Isaac Price in a 5-0 win over Bulgaria, which took him to a Northern Ireland record of 4 goals as Northern Ireland topped their group in 2024. UEFA launched the European Cup, now the Champions League, in 1955, and it was initially, as with all things foreign, regarded with suspicion by the home nations. The record for most goals by a Northern Ireland international in the European Cup whilst playing for an Irish league club is held by Martin McGaggy, who scored 4 goals for Linfield during the 1980s. In the modern UEFA Champions League since 1992, no Northern Ireland international has scored more than the 2 notched by Johnny Evans for Manchester United. The overall record is held by George Best, who scored a total of 9 goals for United, including in the 1968 final win over Benfica. The record for most goals by an Irish league player in major European competitions is held equally by Des Dixon of Coleraine and Johnny Jameson of Crusaders and Glentoran. The second most prolific Northern Ireland international in European competitions is George Best with 11 goals, having added 2 Fairs Cup goals to the 9 he scored in the European Cup. And the most prolific Northern Ireland international in European competitions was Derek Dougan, who scored a total of 12 in the UEFA Cup, including 9 as Wolves reached the final in 1972. Only 2 Northern Ireland internationals have played in Serie A or B in Italy. The most recent was Kyle Lafferty, who notched a total of 12 goals across separate spells with Palermo and Reggina. Prior to this, dual international inside forward Joshua Paddy Sloan enjoyed spells with AC Milan, Udinese, and Brescia, scoring 22 times between 1948 and 1951. The first Northern Ireland international to make an impact in the Eredivisie, that is the Dutch top flight, was Johnny Crossan, who joined Sparta Rotterdam in 1959 during his exile from British football, scoring a total of 5 goals. Sammy Morgan also played for Sparta Rotterdam in the late 1970s, scoring 7 goals, adding 2 more for Groningen in the second-tier Eerste Divisie. James Quinn played 3 seasons for Willem II, scoring a total of 11 goals. More recently, Lee Bonies also scored 11 goals, but only played in the Eerste Divisie for ADO Den Haag. 3 Northern Ireland international footballers have scored 200 or more goals in the English Football League. The first to do so was Peter Doherty, who scored exactly 200 from 1933 to 1953 for Blackpool, Manchester City, Derby County, Huddersfield Town, and Doncaster Rovers. 97 of his goals were scored in the top flight, and he won the title with City in 1937. Jimmy Quinn also enjoyed a lengthy playing career, but was already 22 by the time he joined Swindon Town in 1982. His career took him to Blackburn, Leicester, Bradford, West Ham, Bournemouth, Reading, and Peterborough United, and yielded a total of 211 goals, though he never played any top-flight football. The overall most prolific Northern Irish international footballer in English football was Derek Dougan, who played in the Football League from 1957 to 1975 for Portsmouth, Blackburn, Aston Villa, Peterborough, Leicester, and Wolves, scoring a total of 222 goals, of which 175 were scored in the First Division. Since the inception of the Premier League in 1992, it has become progressively harder for Northern Ireland internationals to feature in the English top flight. The third most prolific Northern Ireland international of the Premier League era is Keith Gillespie, who scored 18 times for Manchester United, Newcastle United, Blackburn Rovers, and Sheffield United over a 13-year period from 1994 to 2007. Next in the standings is Chris Brunt, who played all his Premier League football for West Brom from 2008 to 2018 and managed a total of 23 goals. With 33 goals, Ian Dowie is Northern Ireland's top Premier League goal scorer. He was there from the start, playing for Southampton in the first week of the new competition in August 1992. He also scored for Crystal Palace and West Ham across 5.5 seasons. Although he is widely regarded as one of the all-time greatest players, George Best never featured in an FA Cup final, only ever reaching the semi-final stage. He scored a total of 21 FA Cup goals, all for Manchester United, with the most notable feat being a double hat-trick against Northampton in 1970. Also with 21 goals is Jimmy Quinn, and he also never made it beyond the semi-finals, reaching that stage with West Ham in 1991. Peter Doherty did manage to win the cup, lifting the trophy with Derby County in the first post-war season, having scored 10 of his career 22 goals, including one in the 1946 final win over Charlton. The top-scoring Northern Ireland international in FA Cup games is Jim McLaughlin, with 25 goals through the 1960s. His best season was 1963-64 when he scored 7 goals for Swansea Town, including in their semi-final defeat by Preston. Derek Dougan's only major honour in English football came in the League Cup, which he won in 1974 with Wolves. In 1963 he had scored 5 goals in Aston Villa's run to the final, but missed out on the decider after a falling out with manager Joe Mercer. In all he scored 22 League Cup goals. Kevin Wilson was prolific in the League Cup, scoring a total of 23 times across his long career, with a personal highlight being his 4-goal haul for Derby against Hartlepool in 1984. He never played in the latter stages as he was out of favour when Chelsea reached the semi-finals in 1991. Individually, Jimmy Quinn's best season in the League Cup was 1987-88 when he scored 8 times, including hat-tricks against Bristol City and Portsmouth. The farthest he progressed was in 1995-96 when as player-manager he put Reading 1-up on Premiership Leeds at Elland Road in the quarter-final, only to eventually lose out 2-1 to the eventual finalists. He scored his 27th and final League Cup goal in 1997, when just shy of his 38th birthday, placing him among the most highest goalscorers in the competition's history. Across a career that spanned 2 decades, Terry Harkin scored 283 goals, or was it 284? The anomaly comes from what was his individually most impressive season, 1964-65, where he scored either 34 or 35 goals for Crewe Alexander. In either case that was a seasonal record total for the club. Jimmy Quinn also had a long career but enjoyed his best season in 1993-94 when, at the age of 34, his 35 goals fired Reading to the second division title. In his career, he also topped 20 goals on 2 further occasions. Sheffield United's dual international forward, Jimmy Dunn, topped 30 goals in the First Division for 3 consecutive seasons from 1929 to 1932, but amazingly in none of those did he finish as the Football League's top goal scorer. His best season was 1930-31 when he scored 41 goals in 41 appearances. Glenn "Spike" Ferguson's Irish League career began in 1987 and went on to span a remarkable 24 years, during which he won multiple awards and honours, and scored 300 league goals with Ards, Glenavon, Linfield, and Lisburn Distillery. Another Linfield legend, Joe Bambrick, scored a remarkable 315 goals in his Irish League career, which actually started with Glentoran. Bear in mind, he also spent 5 seasons in England, scoring 49 times for Chelsea and Walsall. Most remember for his time with Glenavon, Jimmy Jones had began his career as a teenager with Belfast Celtic, where his goal-scoring prowess was quickly evident. He was, however, badly injured in an attack from Linfield fans during an infamous Boxing Day riot in 1948, sustaining injuries that ruled him out for 2.5 years. When he returned to the field of play, his goals would fire Glenavon to untold successes. And by the time he had finished his career with brief spells with Portadown and Bangor, he scored a remarkable 332 Irish League goals in just 285 appearances. With 32 goals apiece, Linfield legends Joe Bambrick and Tommy Dixon are tied as the 3rd most prolific goal scorers in the history of the Irish Cup. Those goals brought Tommy 5 winners' medals and Joe 2. In second place with 46 Irish Cup goals is Jimmy Jones, who claimed 3 Irish Cup wins with Glenavon. Glenn Ferguson scored a seemingly unbeatable 53 goals in the Irish Cup on his way to winning 5 medals with Glenavon and Linfield. The post-war record for most Irish League goals in a season is held by Linfield's Martin McGaghay, who scored 34 goals, in a season that was prematurely ended by injury in 1984-85. Before the war, the records are much higher, with Joe Bambrick scoring 50 goals for Linfield in 1929-30, the same season in which he scored a double hat-trick for Ireland in a win over Wales. The year after Bambrick's 50, Glentoran's Fred Roberts scored a British and Irish record 96 in all competitions, which included 55 goals in the Irish League. This record was not out of the blue as, in his 5 seasons at the Oval, Roberts managed tallies of 66, 57, 96, 64, and 49. Before the North American Soccer League was officially founded in 1968, Peter McParland had already scored 6 goals for the Atlanta Chiefs. Those were in the National Professional Soccer League, of which the NASL was a successor. In the first NASL season, McParland scored a further 9 goals, taking his overall tally to 15. Glentoran legend Billy Caskey played 6 NASL seasons for Tulsa Roughnecks and was unfortunate not to play in their Soccer Bowl win of 1983 when ruled out due to a broken leg. He scored a total of 37 NASL goals. Perhaps unsurprisingly, the top goal-scoring Northern Ireland international to have played in the NASL was George Best. Bestie gained 2 All-Star selections across his 6 seasons in the NASL with the LA Aztecs, Fort Lauderdale Strikers and San Jose Earthquakes, and was famous for scoring one of the greatest goals in the tournament's history when he rounded half the Fort Lauderdale team to score for San Jose in 1981. Northern Ireland's only current Major League Soccer player is Paddy McNair, but at the time of recording, he is yet to score a goal. The first Northern Ireland international to play in the MLS was Steve Morrow, who featured for Dallas Burn from 2002 to 2003, scoring 4 goals. The MLS's all-time top-scoring Northern Ireland international is Johnny Steele, who scored 8 goals across 3 seasons for Real Salt Lake and New York Red Bulls, helping the Red Bulls to the Supporters' Shield in 2013. The Scottish Football League governed the top tier of football in Scotland from 1890 to 1998 and the lower leagues through to 2013. The third top goal-scoring Northern Ireland international to have played in the SFL was Sam English of Rangers and Queen of the South, who scored a total of 62 goals, including a remarkable tally and still Rangers club record of 44 in 1931-32. The next top goal-scoring Northern Ireland international in Scotland was Billy Simpson, who scored 116 goals across 10 seasons with Rangers, Stirling Albion and Partick Thistle. The all-time top goal scorer in Scottish football to have been capped by the Irish FA is Patsy Gallagher, aka the Mighty Atom. A dual international who featured for Celtic and Falkirk over 21 seasons, H scored a total of 206 goals and enjoyed his best personal season in 1915-16 when his 28 goals helped Celtic to the league title, one of 6 he claimed while playing for the Hoops. Gallagher remains in the top 30 most prolific goalscorers to have played league football in Scotland. The Scottish Premier League was founded in 1998 when the top Scottish clubs felt they could optimise their earnings in the wake of how their English counterparts had earlier in the decade. The SPL then evolved into the Scottish Premiership when the SPL and SFL re-merged in 2013. The third most prolific Northern Ireland player to have played in the Scottish Prem since 1998 is Liam Boyce, who scored a total of 62 goals for Ross County and Hearts between 2014 and 2024. He also scored a further 14 goals for Hearts in the second-tier championship. Second most prolific is Niall McGinn, with a total of 76 goals for Celtic, Aberdeen and Dundee, and he is still an active player in League One with Peterhead. The most prolific Northern Ireland international in the Scottish Prem is Billy Mackay, who has had a long Scottish career with Inverness, Dundee United and Ross County, which yielded 85 goals in the top tier. He is currently on 118 goals and is an active player with Inverness in League One, making him the second highest scoring Northern Ireland international to have played in the Scottish League since 1890. The League of Ireland split from the Irish League in 1921, and given the close proximity and plethora of Irish dual internationals, it has proved a happy venue for Irish FA Cup players. Derry-born Brendan Bradley remains the league's all-time record scorer with 235 goals, but was never capped. Another Derry native, Terry Harkin, was approaching 30 when he returned home in 1971 to sign for Finn Harps and scored 68 goals in close to a decade in Ballybofey. Cork native Owen Madden played briefly in England but spent most of his career with the various incarnations of his home city clubs, scoring 71 goals on his way to 5 league titles and a cap each from the IFA and FAI. In a decade in the Free State League, Eddie Carroll won titles with Dundalk and Dolphin while scoring 88 goals. He also played in the Irish League for Glenavon and Newry, and in the Scottish League for Aberdeen and Dundee United. Dubliner Paddy Moore scored 18 times to help Shamrock Rovers to the title in 1932 and scored 27 the following season after transferring to Aberdeen. The prolific but well-travelled Rory Patterson brought his boots to Derry City in 2012 and was the league's top scorer the following season with 18 goals. When he joined Limerick in January 1987 from Oxford United, a succession of injuries had saw Billy Hamilton deemed no longer fit for the rigours of full-time football. In 1988-89 he finished as the league's top goalscorer, his tally of 21 taking the club to third spot. So, is David Healy the greatest goalscorer that Northern Ireland has ever produced based on his international performances, or do the club feats of the likes of Joe Bambrick, Derek Dugan, George Best and Jimmy Quinn overshadow him? Let us know your thoughts in the comments below.
Thank you for watching. Please visit the website at nifootball.blogspot.com, follow on X at JCDNIFG, and don't forget to like and share this video here on YouTube. Your comments are very welcome. It would be great to hear your feedback and suggestions for future videos. Please do keep your comments respectful and look out for a new video soon.